We are now live on YouTube.
Nathan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Going back to what was talking about the elections for chair and vice chair, would it be appropriate to table that to next month to where we can talk about that amongst the board members and maybe make a either determination next month or about moving the date? Or is that something that this board should act on tonight?
My recommendation would be to act on it now because that's what the language says. It says that they shall occur in November, and then you can propose to make a change to it subsequently if you'd like.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm calling the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. I would like to welcome everyone to the October, let's go with November Planning Board meeting. And for this meeting, the City of Graham is convening partly by Zoom video phone conference as posted in the City of Graham's website, identifying how the public may join, and the board members are in the council chambers tonight. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, this meeting is being held via Zoom platform. This meeting is being recorded for the purposes of taking minutes. If anyone is having technical or connection difficulties, please contact Preston Jenkins at 336-347-8674 for support. Again, that was 336-347-8674. For items not on tonight's agenda, public comments to address this board will be at the end of the meeting. Please indicate that you wish to do so by raising your hand feature on the Zoom, or if by phone, press *9, and our meeting host will notify me that you wish to speak. As a preliminary matter, I am Dean Ward, the chair of the planning board. I would like to confirm that all members are present tonight with the exception of Eric Chrisman and Michael Benesh at this time. Vice Chair Moody is here. Nate Perry is here. Mr. Chin is here, and Mr. Bailey is here. Staff participants tonight, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative if you can hear us. Planning Director Nathan Page.
Yes, sir.
And Secretary Debbie Jolly.
Here.
Thank you, Debbie. Okay. So I assume that everyone has had an opportunity to view the minutes of last month's meeting. Is there any questions or corrections that need to be made? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them. Okay, Mr. Chin, if you would, talk into your microphone there, please, sir. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the October 20th meeting.
I'll second them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. One more time, folks, before we get started, if anyone would like to speak during the agenda items, please indicate that you wish to do so by raise your hand feature in the Zoom, or if by phone, press *9 to notify the host that you wish to speak. We will recognize you at the appropriate time to speak. If you're having technical difficulties, please contact Preston Jenkins at 336-347-8674 to provide your comments to be read. At this time, I'd like to recognize Planning Director Nathan Page to present the following items. Mr. Page.
Yes, sir, Chair. Where the first item is to elect officers. Nominations are currently open for the position of chair.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to open up the nominations for anyone wishing to sit in the chair's position. I'll take nominations.
I nominate that we leave it the same. I think Dean's done a great job.
I would certainly,
second that.
I would certainly welcome anyone else that would like to sit for a while. I have enjoyed it, and I don't mind doing it, but I appreciate the thought from you. And is there any other nominations? All right. Well, since I've only heard one nomination and Mr. Bailey seconded, we'll take a vote for chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Perry, do you think would you like for me to, Mr. Page, would you like for me to poll tonight, or the minutes are going to be appropriate?
The requirement for the individual polling is for when you guys are attending virtually, it's partially to let us know that you have maintained simultaneous communication throughout the meeting. With the members in person as you are, it's not necessary, although it may be difficult for the general public to see who voted for or against an item. So in the case that there's something that's not unanimous, it's probably a good idea to call out where the votes were.
Thank you. All right, the second thing here in this nomination process is for vice chair. I will open up nominations for anyone who would like to nominate anybody for vice chair. Mr. Moody, it looks like that nobody else wants to nominate anybody, and it looks like you've done a good job. So I'm going to nominate you again.
Thank you, sir. Second.
And I hear a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, Mr. Page, that takes care of that order of business.
Yes, sir. Do you want to proceed to RZ 2008?
Yes, sir. Item number 8 is an apple. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Chairman. We're getting a complaint from an online person that's in the meeting that she can't hear anybody in the council chambers. If you guys could please try to get closer to the microphones and speak up a little bit, that would help. Thank you.
Thank you.
RZ 2008 is Scott rezoning. It is a request to rezone the subject property. The property is currently under cultivation. The stated request is to align the use of the property with the future land use maps employment district. This was an application by staff on behalf of the city of Graham to make it more in line with our plans for the North Carolina Commerce Park. However, we have communicated with the family, and it is my understanding that they are not opposed to the rezoning to industrial of this parcel.
Thank you. Would anyone from the board like to question staff about anything pertaining to this item? Mr. Bailey? Mr. Chin?
No, sir.
Mr. Moody?
No, sir.
And Mr. Perry?
No, sir.
Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak to this matter? That's not present. Jeff, have you got anybody with their hand?
Yes, sir. I have one, Patty Allen.
Okay, if you would, bring her on, please.
Patty, you've been unmuted.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I have a question about the application by the staff. I understand, as Nathan presented it, that it's to bring it in line with the area and the family's not opposed, but is it common for staff to make these such decisions for the property owners in lieu of solicitation by the property owner?
Mr. Page?
Yes, sir. Miss Allen, it is quite common in other jurisdictions for the city to initiate rezonings. The city of Graham does it less often, but has done it a number of times, most recently in 2015.
And in 2015, what was the what was the zoning change?
I'd have to look back at the records to recall.
Because that's 20 years ago and things have changed a wee bit. That's my only question. Thank you.
Miss Allen, that was 5 years ago. This is 2020 and 2015. It was only 5 years, not 20, but thank you for your comment tonight. Okay, Jeff, do we have anyone else?
Yes, sir, we do. Stand by just a second.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Stephanie Ward, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
Ms. Ward, if you would, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Stephanie Ward and I live on Jimmy Kerr Road. So if this is going to be zoned for light industrial, what's going to happen with the traffic? Where's it going to go? What's going to be done with the roads?
Mr. Page, would you like to address that?
Yes, sir. Ms. Ward, the zoning to industrial doesn't affect an end user. That would be evaluated based on who the end user would end up being. So, for example, the city would fight against a truck stop at this location. It's just not an appropriate land use in this location. But the city would support something like Prescient that has a couple hundred jobs, and so would have a few hundred vehicle trips per day, but would likely be less than a comparable neighborhood in the location. However, all that will be evaluated at the time that an end user is identified for the parcel.
So this is 70 acres. So how much can be fit on that particular piece of property?
Nathan, I think that's a little hard to answer, but she would like to know how many could fit on that piece of property. I think she's talking about how many cars or what the potential impact of that many acres in the development of it in a business. How many cars per day?
I'm not sure that the capacity exists to answer that question, just like how many cars could an individual family own or how many people can be in a family. It's too nebulous a question.
Okay, because right now the concern is there's already the plans for the rezoning of the land right next to it. What was that? 170, 180 dwelling units. So that particular road is not really capable of the additional traffic. What's going to happen to stop all these people driving down a road that's already got a weight limit on it? So while I understand this is a conditional rezoning, these are things that we're being concerned about. But once all this happens, nobody's going to care about any of the roads. They're just going to go ahead and drive up and down them like they do now.
Ms. Ward, there's really not an answer that can be given for that right now till we see if it was approved by council or this board, and then what type of business would actually have to come back before the planning and zoning and council again, and then it would be better for that question at that time. Right now, it's strictly nothing more than a rezoning request. Do you have any further questions, ma'am?
No, I'm just very concerned about the sudden development for an infrastructure that's barely hanging on right now.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. Thank you. Jeff, have we got anybody else?
No, sir, Chairman, not at this time.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion here with the board?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we actually have one more pop-up.
Okay, well, let's bring them on.
I believe Tom Boney, Alamance News, had his hand up.
Mr.
Tom.
Boney, Mr. Boney, if you would, state your name and address, please. Mr. Boney?
You've been unmuted. Go ahead, Tom. I see that you're unmuted, but I don't see anything coming from your microphone, Tom.
Mr. Boney, can you hear us? Or can we can't hear anything you're saying if you're talking?
I see nothing coming from his microphone, Chairman.
Mr. Boney, if you would, I can give you that phone number again. It's 336-347-8674 if you would like to call in. It's 336-347-8674 and press star 9. I'll give you just another couple minutes to see if you want to call in.
Mr. Chairman, if you would give Tom the support number, Preston standing by to help him.
Okay, Mr. Boney, the number will be 336-347-8674 star 9. Thank you.
He's on the phone with Preston at this time.
Great, thank you.
Chairman Ward, if you would read Tom the phone number to call, please, so he can call in that way.
Okay, Is that the 347 number I've been reading?
It's for
or is it- or
the
is it a
Zoom.
different one?
The Zoom one.
Chair Ward, would you like me to read it?
Yes, please, because I don't have that one.
You can dial 646-558-8656. And then the webinar ID is 856-4510-9450. And that'll allow your cell phone to have voice only over this meeting. I will type it in the chat just in case you can see that better.
Thank you. Do we need to give that number one more time? Mr. Boney, if, it's 646-558-8656.
I think I got him here. I've got one person on the phone. I'm going to promote him.
All right, thank you.
Nathan, I believe it's what, *9 to unmute?
I believe the *9 is to raise your hand. Try *6.
Try *6, Tom, to unmute yourself. There you go.
Did that work?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
All right.
You've got a really bad echo. Turn down your computer.
Okay, hold on.
There you go.
Yes, sir. You're here now.
Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, Mr. Boney.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to cause a delay by my lack of technology. I wanted to follow up a little bit on I think it was Ms. Allen's question. With respect to the property owner, I certainly assume has been informed about this request being made for the change in zoning for his property.
Mr. Page?
Mr. Boney, the property is owned by a group of individuals. I believe that it is a woman who is the major property owner. And yes, of course, they were notified. They were notified by email in the conversation before we proceeded with the rezoning. And then they also received a paper mailing, as do all property owners when rezonings occur.
All right, and they have voiced no objection and/or positive affirmative agreement with the rezoning proposal?
They're present in this meeting and can speak for themselves if they desire to do so. As of now, they have chosen not to, and that's their right to do so.
All right. I guess my underlying question is back to Ms. Allen's. What is the purpose, or what was the cause for the city to initiate this rezoning?
Chair Ward, do you want me to address that?
Sure.
The stated request is to align the use of the property with the future land use maps employment district.
Is this the same property that has already had a request for a different use on it within the past year?
Mr. Page?
This property has not come before the planning board nor the city council in the last year.
All right, but for any future use other than light industrial, it would require subsequent planning board and city council action, consideration, and approval, presuming the city council also agrees to it.
Mr. Page?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I do find this puzzling for the city to initiate such rezonings. If the property owners are on the line and they don't mind, or they have voiced no objection in writing previously, I guess that assumes their acquiescence. But it seems to me that's mighty shallow approval to be going on when something as fundamental and significant as this kind of rezoning is being requested. And again, I find it kind of suspect, to be honest, to be initiated by the city, particularly when there's been a controversy over time about whether the owners in that area are free to use their land as they desire. They were promised that when the Hall Fields Industrial Park area was first put together, was that there would be no limitations on individual owners being able to use their property. And yet this proposes to put a restriction on it that might be what the city wants to see in the long term, but would seem to be a restriction both on the property owner and will no doubt would be used by the city to critique any subsequent adjacent or nearby property requests for something other than light industrial.
Thank you, Mr. Boney. Any further questions for Mr. Boney from any of the board members? Mr. Boney, do you have any further questions, sir?
No, that's fine, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And again, my apologies for the delay.
Thank you, sir.
And Ward, there is one more member of the public that has raised their hand.
Please.
Yes.
Please put them on.
Andrew Cagle, you've been
Mr.
unmuted. Go ahead.
Mr. Cagle, if you would, state your name and address for the record.
Andrew Cagle, you've been unmuted.
Can you hear me now? All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My name is Andrew Cagle. I live at 1322 North Chimana Road, Graham, North Carolina. As a representative of the property owners on this particular issue, we have no objections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle. Any questions for Mr. Cagle? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cagle. Anyone else?
No, sir. That is it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any discussion from the board concerning this request tonight? Or any questions for Mr. Page? Mr. Moody?
No, sir.
Nate?
No, sir. I do feel like this is in line with what the city's supposed to be doing, which is developing a strategic plan and figuring out what areas to focus on. I believe it's important that we foster regions for larger employers, et cetera. So I get it. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
No, sir.
And Mr. Chen?
No questions.
And I have no further questions. I'll entertain a motion from board.
I make a motion we accept it as presented, which is in compliance with the 2035 plan according to applicable policies 2.4.1, 4.3.1, and 2.2.1.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Got multiple seconds, Mr. Moody and Mr. Bailey both. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, Mr. Page, can we move on to item number B?
Yes, sir, Chair Ward. This is conditional rezoning 2004. It is a request to rezone the subject property from light industrial to conditional business. The applicant is proposing to maintain the front setback line of the subject property at the front building line of the existing structure. The proposed uses for the new zone would include all uses within the general business B2 zoning, and the rear and side yards would be as required by the B2 zoning. The property is currently vacant, but has plans to be used as a contractor's office with no outdoor storage.
Thank you. Before we move forward with this, I want to bring to the board's attention that Mr. Duggins, Jeff Duggins, who owns this property, my company actually does right much work for his company. And also I have used his son's services for welding over the past 6 months on a pretty regular basis. I don't think it will affect my decision, but I will be more than happy to recuse myself if anyone thinks I need to. Mr. Moody,
I'm good.
Mr. Chin,
I'm okay with it.
Mr. Bailey,
I'm fine with it.
and Mr. Perry.
I'm fine as well.
Okay, let's move forward. And is the applicant present tonight?
I've got one hand raised.
Okay, what's the name?
It's the representative for the applicant.
Okay, great.
Ryan,
That's who I-
Ryan, you've been
that's who-
unmuted. State your name and address, please.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Ryan Moffett. I'm an attorney at the Vernon Law Firm in Burlington. Our offices are located at 522 South Lexington Avenue in Burlington, 27215. I am here this evening representing Mr. Jeff Duggins, as Mr. Chairman noted. He is the applicant and the owner of the subject property. It's located at 620 West Elm Street. The property requested for rezoning is a portion of Alamance County parcel number 134480. It's approximately 4/10 of an acre is the portion of the property that we are requesting for this rezoning. It's currently zoned I-1 light industrial. We're requesting rezoning to conditional business to maintain all the uses permissible in the B2 district, but to establish the front setback at the existing building line. That's the only condition that would deviate from the standard B2 requirements. This property currently isn't being used to its full potential and in some ways is in disrepair. The applicant and I would hope the city would like to see it rehabilitated and put to a use that's more consistent with the surrounding properties and other uses along West Elm Street as one of the city's larger commercial corridors. In the context of the comp plan, the comprehensive land use plan, the plan calls for this area to be used for mixed use commercial uses. And in that light, the request is consistent with the plan. It's also consistent with the current uses along Elm Street and onto Hardin Street leading into the downtown district. As if you look at the zoning map, Elm and Hardin are almost exclusively, not quite exclusively, but almost exclusively lined with B2 uses, which are then flanked by the medium density residential districts on the outskirts there. As I noted, the one condition that does deviate from the standard B2 requirements is the establishment of that front setback at the existing building line. This is an important condition for several reasons. First of all, as you can see in the applicant materials, the existing building is a non-conforming structure under the current development ordinance. Whether it remains whether it remains zoned I1 or whether we were to seek a B2 zoning, because it was constructed as closely as it was to the front property line, it is well within the current front setback requirements by both of those districts. So this condition is necessary to bring the existing structure into conformity with the current development ordinance. And I'd also mention the setback condition is not just for the sake of conformity itself, but oftentimes, and we see this pretty frequently with property owners who seek to finance improvements, oftentimes have to be able to secure a zoning certification in order to borrow funds to make improvements to the property. And if we have a non-conforming structure, it's not likely we would be able to secure that certificate in order to obtain financing for improvements. So that's also a driver of this. I can't say that that's in play as we speak, but it's a consideration that matters as we consider how this property gets used in the future. It needs to conform to the development ordinance. The second point to that condition is that if that condition is not granted, the setback under the B2 district is 40 feet. And it's just not that deep of a lot to begin with. It's kind of sticks out the way the parcel is set up. It sort of sticks out like a thumb. The idea is that it would be recombined with the adjacent parcel. It's about 146 feet deep at that point. To illustrate sort of the constraint there, if it's handy and you look at the orthographic overlays along Elm Street and Hardin Street at the other B2 zoned properties, I think you'd be hard pressed to identify very many of those buildings that are able to conform to that setback requirement. And a lot of those are probably in the same boat as this building, having predated the time when these setback requirements were imposed. So for that reason, it's an important condition. And finally, the comprehensive plan for these mixed use districts, as noted in the materials, endorses and encourages reduced setbacks in these mixed use commercial areas. I think this is to promote the more pedestrian friendly and welcoming frontage, and also to promote parking in the rear of these properties. So it does lend itself to those policy considerations under the plan. And just in the context of the property itself, I mentioned this part of the plan is to recombine the portion of this property that's being rezoned with the adjacent parcel there to the northwest, which Mr. Duggins also owns, which is also currently zoned B2. This will allow for just consistency along that Elm Street road frontage. And so there's a number of reasons why this is going to satisfy the plan. It's going to allow for the property to be rehabilitated and put to good use. And also note that as you all know, zoning from an industrial use to a general business use is a down zoning, so it's generally going to the uses are going to be lower impact uses. that are going to be more appropriate for the road fronting property along this heavily used commercial corridor. Want to thank Mr. Page for his assistance and work helping us sort of find the right prescription for this piece of property and to ensure that it does fit with the plan. I think it does. I'm convinced that it does, and I hope you all will see that too. I appreciate your favorable consideration and would ask for your recommendation of approval. Certainly happy to answer any questions you all have. I believe Mr. Duggins is on the call and also available to answer any questions you all might have as well. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Moffett. I have a question I'd like to ask. How will this parcel be accessed? Will it be accessed from the Tenning Street or from the side of the building, right adjacent to the left side of the building?
No, sir. So if we're able to recombine this portion of the larger parcel with the parcel that's there to the west along West Elm Street, then it'll just be accessed from West Elm Street. And right now, because it's a non-conforming structure, the recombination plat also can't be approved. And so that's another barrier. If the zoning's denied, then it can still be accessed from West Elm. I think there's a driveway there. You see where the red car is in the photograph? So there's a little drive down there that allows the property to be accessed from West Elm or from the rear off of Tennon Street. But the idea is just to have one property fronting West Elm and no longer to have that larger industrial piece sort of poking out the way it is currently.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board for Mr. Moffett or Mr. Duggins if he's available? Mr. Moody,
Not this time.
Mr. Chin,
Not at this time.
Mr. Bailey,
Not at this time.
and Mr. Perry.
Not at this time.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain discussion. Well, no, I'll see if there's anybody else that would like to speak concerning this rezoning request.
There is one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Tom Boney, if you'd hit *6 on your phone, it'll unmute you.
Did that work?
Yes, sir, it did.
yes, sir, Mr. Boney.
All right, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted a clarification on the address. Mr. Moffett described it as 620. I see some of the written material says 620A and B, but the agenda says 618. Could you just somebody clarify exactly what address it is? And maybe it's all.
Mr. Page?
The legal description of it is the GPIN 887475678. The portions of it that are being rezoned are the ones that are highlighted in your packet. There's a fair number of addresses in that area, but it's the portion of the lot that has been described by the survey and the legal identifier of the GPIN.
But in layman's terms, is that 620 or 618?
It's the building that is shown on your screen now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Boney. Yes, does anybody else like to speak?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, that is everyone.
Okay. I will entertain any discussion here amongst the board members. Well, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that it be accepted as presented. Applicable policies are 2.1.5 to reduce barriers, 2.3.1 to facilitate focused development, and 2.4.2 to promote industrial redevelopment.
Thank you, Mr. Perry, and I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, Mr. Page, let's talk about item number C.
Yes, sir, Chair Ward. C is special use permit 2001 Bethany Towns. This is a request for a special use permit for a dwelling townhome for a property located at 1501 South Main Street. The site is currently vacant. The site is approximately 6.2 acres. The plan would permit up to 65 units. The layout would be accessed off of Highway 87 and would maintain the commercial frontage between the townhome development and Highway 87. A landscaping buffer has been proposed along the exterior of the property with a type A buffer to be installed.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Before we get started here, folks, this is a quasi judicial proceeding, and just want to check each one of the board members and poll them to make sure they had no conversations with anyone about this property before we go into our proceedings here. Mr. Bailey,
None.
Mr. Moody,
None.
Mr. Chin,
None.
and Mr. Perry,
None.
and neither have I. Okay. Is the applicant present?
Chair Ward, would you like to swear in anyone who wishes to speak on this item?
Yes, I would. That's, I wanted to see if the ones that's got their hands raised are the petitioners or the developer. If so, I'd like to get those sworn in, and anyone wishing to speak tonight concerning this one matter also would have to be sworn in. Please indicate by raising your hand. And Jeff, if you would, call them out.
If you're on the phone and you wish to speak on this item, to raise your hand is *9. Okay, from the top, Chairman Ward, we have Thurmond Smith.
Jeff, unfortunately, we're going to need to promote them into the meeting so that they can say that they swear in when Debbie has the request.
All right, I'll allow everyone to talk. Stand by. Okay, Chair Ward, there's been 6 people unmuted.
Okay, I would like to poll each one of them to make sure that they can hear us before I ask the secretary, Madam Secretary, to swear them in. If you would, Jeff, since I can't see the names, could you poll each one of them to see if they can hear us?
Sure, Thurmond Smith.
I cannot hear the council very well.
Could you hear her, Chairman Ward?
Yes, I could.
Okay. Garrick Sylvia,
I can hear.
Carla Sylvia.
I can hear.
Sorry, I know I'm slaughtering your name. Glenn Patterson,
Yes, I can hear.
P. Sidelko,
Yes, I can hear fine. Thank you.
Patty Allen.
Yes.
That is everyone, Chairman.
Thank you. And it's everyone that spoke just now, all of y'all are wanting to speak about this one particular item. If not, signify by stating that you're not here to talk about this one item. Thank you. Madam Secretary, if you would you swear these people in for me, please?
Yes. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
And Jeff, if you would you poll each one of them again to make sure we did get the I do from everyone?
Okay, Thurmandy,
I do.
Garrick,
I do.
Carla,
I do.
Glenn.
I do.
First name starts with P.
Penny. I do.
Patty Allen.
I do.
That is everyone.
Chair
Thank you.
Ward, I also swore in on this item at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you would, when it's your turn to speak tonight, would you please state your name and full address for the record when you're called upon to speak? And okay, I will hear from the petitioner or the developer first.
Penny, are you the one that's going to speak first on this item?
I can. This is Penny Sacadlo, Penny Engineering Design, 9220 Fairbanks Drive in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a request to have townhomes within the current zoning of R12. It is allowed as a special use, and the special use ask us to have findings of facts and conclusions. I will go down the list of the findings of facts and conclusions and also be able to answer any questions as we go through this list. The regulations of the zoning district are complied with. That is correct because it is an allowable use within the underlying zoning. The front parcel is zoned B12, and at this time it is part of the landscaping and transportation design, but it has no current plans for the commercial use at this time. It is part of the 87 corridor plan that is encouraging commercial mixed use, walkable projects, a variety of uses. It is complied with by the conditions of the development ordinance.
Okay.
I'm sorry, was that a question?
It didn't come from the board.
Okay, all right. The second condition.
Jeff, did we lose her?
Oh, yeah, hold on 1 second. Her name is Penny, right?
Yes, I got it back.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. The second condition is that we need to meet the development ordinance with any plan in a special use. That is what you have on your screen in front of you. It is showing the proposed uses, the proposed landscaping, the proposed traffic, the proposed transportation, the proposed utility layout. This is extending existing utilities and actually is taking some utilities up to the commercial, which will be used for some future use. Right now, that wouldn't have it without this development. This is a plan that we are proposing for a variety of uses in this area. It is a forward-looking plan. It is trying to meet the comprehensive 2035 comprehensive plan. The current uses is vacant or small homes in this area. But this has potential for this 87 corridor to really and truly improve to a residential, commercial, mixed-use, walkable community. The third item is that the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety located where it's proposed. And as an engineer, public health and safety is always a consideration, and this plan will not injure the public health and safety once it is developed as residential uses. Number 4, I'm going to leave that for someone that is in real estate. It's the value of adjoining properties. Carla, do you want to take that now, and then I'll come back to number 5?
Did you say Carla?
Chair Ward, are you okay with us unmuting Carla to address that item and then to go back to Penny?
Absolutely.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. State your name.
Hi, this is Carla Sevilla, located at 1015 Pinehurst Drive in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I am a broker who has sold several townhomes and real estate in Graham. And I am offering up a broker price opinion of the proposed subdivision, as well as explaining my professional opinion that it would be commensurate with keeping values not just stable, but also increasing the value of the neighborhoods and surrounding homes in the area. I performed a CMA on the parcel and did about a 2-mile radius search. My findings on the CMA of all homes sold within 2020 for the past 12 months was that properties in this submarket were selling on an average of $125 a foot. And properties in this submarket were an average age of 1995. That said, the developer is looking to put townhomes of an approximate square footage of 1,700 square feet in line with that same price per square foot. So if anything, the values will probably go up in the surrounding area. We are adjoining or on the same street of auto mechanics, a fencing company, somewhat of a light industrial market. And we would bring the townhomes to the rear of the parcel to make that more of a community feel, but also increasing density and the quality and new construction in the area. So we do feel that the property will add value to the surrounding community and is incommensurate with keeping in the price and the market does need this product. The townhomes that are on the market in Graham in this submarket typically go within 14 days. So there is quite a large demand for this for our community.
Thank you. Any questions for Carla from the board? Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Ms. Penny, if you'd like to finish.
Yes, that I will continue with number 5. The location and character of the development that is proposed is in harmony with the area. It is not matching the current development, but again, the comprehensive plan is looking for some forward thinking and some design and some mixed use of different types of development. There is this proposed development has no building closer than 40 feet to any adjoining property. There is going to be a dense type A buffer all the way around the property. It has an internal circulation pattern that will meet the needs of this particular neighborhood, and it also includes some transportation corridors that will run parallel with 87 and hopefully allow for some interconnectivity as this area grows. So it is definitely in general conformity with the Graham planning area. The 6th item is that the vehicular circulation, parking, loading, and satisfactory provisions has been made for utilities and open space and screening. And I think I've stated that throughout this whole conversation, but I'll state it again, that this has been met with the satisfactory provisions. We have some more than sufficient screening beyond what is required by the development code. We are installing the utilities. We will have signs, lighting, open space. The open space in this particular development is 29%, which is a lot of open space. And we are making sure that the circulation pattern will be improved in this area and with future development. So I will conclude that as following the 6 items of findings of fact. And as a professional engineer, I have stated that as my expert opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Penny. Thank you very much. Any questions from the board here for Ms. Penny? Any engineering? I got a couple, I'd like to ask her since we got her before we take, the next person in line. Ms. Penny, what is the, proposed width of the driveways, here?
The roadway itself,
No, the driveways, the concrete, I'm presuming these are concrete driveways in front of these units?
yes, that is concrete driveway in front of that. It's 10 feet.
And what is the average size per lot?
The average size per lot, 22 feet wide by, I think it's going to be 75 feet deep.
Okay, and are these proposed lots here going to be owned by the property owner?
Yes, that is, that
or
is
a
the, that is the function of the townhome lot, is that
Okay.
each unit would have a front yard and a backyard and would own that property.
Okay, that's all I got for right now. Anybody want a follow-up question for Ms. Penny since I've asked these?
Chair Ward and members of the planning board, that item is not admissible. The ownership or renter of property is not something that the city of Graham has any authority over, or we wouldn't have the ability to make that a condition. That should be stricken from consideration for this item.
Let's move on. The next one, Mr. Jeff Wilson, would you give me the next person?
Sure. Thurman D. Smith.
Smith, please state your
Uh-huh.
name and address.
Thurman D. Smith, 309 Forest Drive, Graham.
Thank you, ma'am.
These townhomes, are they single?
I'll get that answer for you in just a minute. You want to know if they're single family?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions.
Okay, let's go through each one of them, please.
All right. I'd like to know what the buffer is because it looks like the back of the property where they plan on developing is right on my property line. So when she says she's going to stay 40 feet from a dwelling, I'd like to know, is that 40 feet from my property line or is that 40 feet from my house?
Okay, we'll get that answer for you. What's your next question?
Okay, and I go around to the left-hand side also. So that concerns me. I'd also like to know what kind of buffer she's using.
Okay.
Is it a wall? Is it forest? Is it, she said landscape, sound. I also see that the application was put in by Patterson Glen and the Bethany Presbyterian Church. Does that mean this becomes a tax exempt property?
I'll get that answer for you, but I don't believe it does mean that, but I will get that answer for you. Any further questions?
No, she answered 65 homes is what she is proposing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Penny, would you like to address these questions? The ones that you can, and Nathan will do the others.
Certainly. Yes, a townhome is for a single family dwelling unit, and the 40 feet is from the property line. There won't be a building closer to than 40 feet to any property line. It is a type A buffer that includes 4 canopy trees, 10 understory trees, and 33 shrubs per 100 feet of perimeter. Once it is developed as a project, it is no longer tax exempt. And I think that was your questions, right?
That's what I noted. Did that answer your questions, ma'am?
I'd like to know what the trees are going to keep out from my yard.
Ma'am, we don't get into the type of tree in this meeting. We have a zoning ordinance that requires a type A planting, and she described to you what the type A planting consisted of, not species.
Okay.
And we'll leave it at that. Any
I would
further que-
prefer to see a wall.
Any further questions, ma'am?
Yeah, is it possible to have a wall?
I'll note that, ma'am. Anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wilson, next.
The next one with the hands raised is Carla.
Thank
Carla,
you. I believe I've already given my broker price opinion and feel that this community is commensurate within keeping with the values, if not raising the values of the surrounding area for our neighbors.
Thank you, Carla. Next, Mr. Wilson.
Glenn Patterson, you've been unmuted.
Good evening. I'm Glenn Patterson, excuse me, that's my old address. 885 Cheeks Lane, Graham, North Carolina. I am the owner of Patterson Appraisal Company and also a broker with Spears Realty. I am the listing agent of these properties. Approximately half of this property was owned by my father and is in a trust that we're marketing. You can see Nathan just pulled up the northern part of this property was owned by the A.H. Patterson Jr. Trust. The south part of this property is owned by Bethany Presbyterian Church, which is directly across South Main Street from this property. I'm brokering these properties together, and I would like to defer comments if possible till everyone else spoke. I can provide some data after everyone else has spoke that may be helpful.
That'd
if
be fine,
possible.
Mr. Patterson. Yes, sir, that's fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, next.
Last one on the list is Patty Allen. Patty, you've been unmuted.
Patty Allen, 265 West Shannon Drive, Graham. Two questions. First, I'm curious about why this is being proposed as special use rather than its accurate description as residential multifamily. And the second question, the second is actually a statement, and that is that traffic is absolutely an issue with the other projects that have already been proposed, approved, and those that are already in construction, especially at this point in the road as Swepsonville Road is splitting off of 87. So danger absolutely is an issue. And lastly, I would like, as Mr. Patterson did, to be able to reserve some comment after I hear answers to my questions, should I have any further comment or question.
Okay, Ms. Allen, thank you. Mr. Patterson, do you have any further follow-up?
I would agree with Ms. Allen that traffic at this intersection is a major concern. It always has been. Some years ago, I set in place trying to eradicate the southern loop that went through this property. I believe it affected Ms. Allen's property too, and a whole lot of other properties on Rogers Road, and we were successful in that, to really be able to utilize our properties to the best of their abilities. This intersection is a troublesome intersection in front of Bethany Church. It always has been. So I don't know the answer to that. Is how do you keep this from being an issue? I like this plan personally. The front of it is zoned B2. They're keeping that buffer there for any future B2 use. The back part, what do you do with it? As a broker, I've had folks that come in and that look to buy the whole thing for a single house. For townhomes, it was under contract some years ago for townhomes. That fell through. We've had some folks looking at it for a single family kind of development. Again, it increases traffic. B2 uses, which is allowable on the front, creates traffic issues in there. I would say that if anything within the use of it is that how do you address the traffic issue in the front of the property? And again, I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has or give my opinion of it. I've lived within literally a half a mile of this property my entire life and been at Bethany Church my entire life. Again, be glad to answer any questions or give professional opinions on these.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Allen, your last follow-up here.
My first question actually wasn't answered regarding the why is this being approached as a special use rather than its accurate zoning, which would be multifamily? Because the traffic goes hand in hand with that. And the fact of the matter is, if it were R12 or greater zoning, or B2, there would absolutely be less traffic than 65 residences. I've already learned through following the other developments along 87 and on Rogers Road that 65 homes doesn't mean 65 cars. It means at least 3 to 4, and in some cases, 5 more trips per vehicle per day, averaged at 2 vehicles per home, So going about this through special use, which I understand, and I studied the 6 conditions, and I'm aware of that, I think it's a complete misnomer and should be approached as to what it is, which is multifamily, because it does add a greater impact on that piece of property in this part of the city than special use actually represents as a book cover. So I'd like that question answered, please.
Mr. Page.
Chair Ward, as you're aware, the residential multifamily density is our highest density and would allow for somewhere around 200 units to go on the portion that is here presented as having 65. Additionally, our development ordinance allows for a special use permit for townhomes in the R12, as has been done in other places in the city in the past. It is a zoning right to have a special use permit for townhomes at this location. Additionally, I think there's some confusion about the process for a special use permit. As you and I have discussed, a commercial recycling facility requires a special use permit. It is a use that the city council has set standards for in place, and if the applicant meets those standards, they are entitled to the use of that location.
Thank you. Jeff, we got anybody else?
No, sir. I believe everyone has spoken. If anybody has not spoken that has been sworn in and would like to, please raise your hand. No hands, sir. Looks like we're good.
Okay. I would like to speak with Miss Penny again, and I don't know if she can tell us about the partial up front that's been cut out, the B2. I'd like to know the size there and the entrances that's been proposed coming into this development. Miss Penny, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am. The area at the front is, I believe, just over 2 acres. I'm trying to zoom in on my data here. It's 2.3 acres. Part of it is being used as a public road, both in the access out to 87 and as a public road along the split zoning line in an effort to alleviate some of that traffic onto 87 at some point in the future when the adjoining commercial properties are also developed, so that you don't have to have a driveway to every commercial property onto 87.
Okay, and as far as the private road is labeled private road, is there going to be a barrier or something separating the private road from the secondary fire access?
No, there won't be any barrier. The word private is implying who is going to maintain that. That would be maintained by the homeowners association and not by the town.
Any other questions for Ms. Penny from the board? Okay. All right, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Chair Ward, the question that you had may have raised questions with the public. The line that exists between the private road and the secondary fire access is a figment of the drawing. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that that's just the center line of the road, but Penny, the engineer who drew it, would be able to answer that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Page.
I just saw that too. Again, that would not have city maintenance associated with it. I thought you were referring to the private roads in front of the townhome, but that would be maintained by either the commercial property or the HOA, depending on where when that is when the property is developed in the commercial area.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, Penny Engineering? All right, ma'am. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time, and we're going to have some discussion between the board here. Mr. Page, with this number of units here, I'm concerned about the one way in, one way out with this private road on the other side, that this other parcel could stop the use from the people from behind it from using it. Is this going to be adequate for 60 plus homes here to use this one entrance and outlet?
Chair Ward, one entrance and outlet would not be adequate, but it's my understanding that Ms. Sakato said that the private road will be maintained by the HOA, and therefore the rights would be the HOA's, not whatever future user ended up on that lot in the future.
So does the city, the staff, I'm concerned about that because I've seen the homeowners associations in the past in numerous communities across Graham and other municipalities where the HOAs fall apart. And then there's an issue there that ultimately, if it don't get fixed, then there's one way in and one way out. Is this something that we could consider putting a condition on that to be made public instead of private?
It would be my recommendation to defer to the Public Works Director on that, but the planning board could recommend conditions for the council to then attach to this item.
Thank you. Mr. Moody, you have any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Bailey?
No, sir.
Mr. Chin?
Is there only one way into this property? Because when you look at the B2 area, the north and south side, are there roads that residents can access from either one? Or is it one way in on the north road and one way out on the south road? Is that the intent?
Is Mr. Page, can you assist? Is any other stub outs that connect to this?
Both the northern entrance, which would be the primary entrance for the neighborhood as designed, but our preliminary feedback from NCDOT is that they would prefer that at the southern side. That feedback is going to be available in time for the city council meeting, but both it and the private road that would also double for secondary fire access would meet the lane width standard that the city of Graham has, and therefore would both work for two-way traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Perry?
Good.
No further discussion. Mr. Bailey, you sure you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Nathan, could you put the proposed motion up on the screen?
Yes, sir. One moment, I'll get the packet up. Mr. Chin, is that what you were looking for?
Yes.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept it as presented with the additional exception or caveat that, Dean, what was it we were working with a few minutes ago that you wanted to talk about?
The second entrance is labeled the second entrance that's labeled a private road. I would like to make that as part of the condition, if approved, to be a public access, dedicated public access.
And is this for all roads or just the B2 section that you would like to see?
All roads in and out of the townhome.
Okay, I would like to add that caveat of consider the main points of egress to be public instead of private. That's it. And this is based on compliance with applicable policies 2.2.1, 5.1.1, and 5.2.1.
I have a proper motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, Nathan, let's move on to the item number three.
Yes, sir, Chair Ward. The only remaining item is the 160D update. The attorneys are still not finished with their review of this item, and I received no questions from any members of the planning board regarding this item. I have left it on here in case there was any discussion that the board wanted to have on the item.
Would anybody like to bring up anything that they would want to talk about tonight on the 160D? I see Mr. Chan. Raise your hand, Mr. Chan.
Yes. In regard to what we as the planning board are required to approve, it seems that we, according to the revised 160D, the planning board would approve minor subdivisions, but it seems that the larger subdivisions, we're cut out of the process. I don't understand that.
Nathan, you want to elaborate?
So my response to that remains the same as last month. It was a recommendation of the School of Government, given that the approval for major subdivisions is an administrative task once they meet the standard of the zoning underneath, and therefore it is basically a rubber stamp for a subdivision. That's very, very different from the special use permit that we just saw or the conditional rezoning that we just saw. Oftentimes, a subdivision will look like a conditional rezoning when they came through, as we saw with Riley's Meadow and Cherry Creek. The different one to that is the Council Creek, where the input of the board and the city council was very, very limited in what they could apply, given that they met all of the standards of the development ordinance.
It just seems kind of odd that we do not have a chance to review something where we administratively make a decision on a major subdivision, and the board that's responsible for approving that the subdivision fits in with all the different plans and such, we're cut out. We've made something that has serious impact to be an administrative procedure, and that makes no sense.
And I would like to say, Nathan, as an earlier discussion that me and you was talking about when I come in tonight, is you used the term again, recommendation. So are you saying that's not cut in stone, that this board can choose not to go with that recommendation and have all subdivisions brought before the board before they go to the council?
Chair Ward, that would exceed the legal authority of the city of Graham.
Okay. Any other questions for Nathan about this particular item? I would like to bring up then, since we're talking about this 160D, that I think the board here needs to be represented by an attorney for the planning board. The city's attorney is here to represent the city's interest. And I would like to get a consensus from this board about one of our board members going before city council, posing this question to council to see if council thinks it is something appropriate to appoint an outside attorney to represent the planning board for some legal questions that board members may have concerning the 160D, because it's very comprehensive and long and lengthy. And I've heard from several conversations that I've had, recommendation, and some of it cut in stone as, no, this is what the Institute of Government is stating has to be. So if it's the consensus of this board, I would like to recommend one of us going before city council asking for that attorney. Do I hear any other discussion concerning this?
I agree with you, and I think I'd recommend the vice chair go before the board, because we, as the planning board, have a responsibility to the citizens of Graham. We're supposed to be kind of their representatives in reviewing what's being proposed. So if we're cut out of the loop, how does the citizen have any input into what's going to happen in the city?
I agree with you, Mr. Chin. Mr. Perry, what's your thought?
In kind of the nature of the state of the world outside of this room, I think anytime that we can get the full story or understand it, basically, I'm willing to go along to get the buy-in of this board on what's before us. And I am trusting of the school of government. I'm trusting Mr. Page. I believe there's a lot of nuance to what's being discussed here. And I am not a realtor or an attorney or even somebody that likes paperwork. So I can understand looking at this and thinking that we'd need somebody's eyeballs that are accustomed to it to evaluate and let us know as a group. I'm for it.
Mr. Bailey, what's your thoughts?
Well, I pretty much agree that the board represents the citizens of Graham there. And I'm definitely in compliance with another set of eyes on it. I mean, you spoke of an attorney that will keep us in line legally, as well as give us another set of eyes on it. So I'm in compliance with it.
Okay, well, if it's the consensus of the board here tonight, I would like for Mr. Moody or myself to go before council with the graces of the board here to stress our desire to seek some outside eyes looking at it as far as the planning board is concerned. I'm not against anything that, well, I say I'm not against. I just maybe don't understand how we could give up that authority to allow a subdivision to be approved without someone on a planning commission or council approving it, number one. And maybe if there was somebody that gave us the legal opinion of how that is possible and stuff, we might understand it better and go along with it. So, in the conversation that we've had, it's the consensus, which I hear it is, me or Mr. will go before city council next month and talk about possible representation and see if council will approve representation for us. Mr. Page, if you would, I'd like to be on the agenda, or Mr. Moody, myself, one of us would like to be on the agenda, city council agenda next month for just this discussion.
Chair Ward, I will email the clerk and CC. I think Mr. Chin recommended Mr. Moody as well, so that will be 2 in favor of Mr. Moody. So I'll CC Mr. Moody on there and put them in communication, and he can request to be placed on their agenda.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about 160D for Nathan tonight? Okay. Well, we'll go to number 4, which is the public comment on non-agenda items. Mr. Wilson, I'll open it up for any public comments on non-agenda items if there's anyone that would like to speak.
Sure. If there's anyone in attendance that would like to speak, please raise your hand by hitting *9 on your phone or hit the raise hand button. We do have one person that has their hand raised, Mr. Chairman, Tom Boney.
Okay, let's recognize Mr. Boney.
Tom, if you would hit *6 on your cell phone, it will unmute you, sir. Tom, if you're there, if you'll hit *6 on your cell phone, it'll unmute you.
Put that number back up one more time, just by chance if
He's still connected.
okay, all right. Mr. Wilson, do we have anybody else?
No, sir, he's the only one.
We'll give him a couple more minutes.
Once again, Tom, I can see you have your hand raised to talk. If you'd like to talk on this item, hit *6 on your phone to be unmuted.
Okay, well, Mr. Boney's having difficulties. We're going to move on. If there's any other board member that has any comments on any non-agenda items, I'll entertain them right now. And like to hear from you. Mr. Bailey,
None.
Mr. Chin,
None, sir.
Mr. Moody, and Mr. Perry.
All set, sir.
All right. Don't look like Mr. Boney's going to be able to connect back up with us, so I'm going to entertain a motion, since there's nothing else on the agenda, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Wait a minute before we second that. Mr. Page, did you have anything further? I'm sorry not to ask you.
No, sir, nothing further.
Thank you. All right. And I'll second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.